All right, today we're going to look at graphing equations in standard form. Before we begin, go ahead and do your warm-up. Hit pause. When you're done, go ahead and hit play to check your work. All right, here we go. So, number 1, you should have ended up with y equals negative x plus 4. Number 2, you should have ended up with y equals 2x minus 10. Number 3, you should have ended up with y equals 3/4 x plus 3. And last but not least, y equals 2x plus 5. In our last lesson, we talked about graphing in slope-intercept form. Well, unfortunately, not all of our equations are written in the form of y equals. Often, we'll see equations like this that we need to turn into this. Now here, if I wanted to graph this, I would have to pick a number for x, solve for y. Now, if it's written like this, here's my slope, there's my y-intercept, and I can graph without having to plot x and y values in here. So this is actually what we call standard form. So standard form of a linear equation, remember linear means a line. Standard form of a linear equation is ax plus by equals c. Now, that means a and b here are not considered variables, but are considered numbers. So a, b, and c are actually numbers. So a, b, and c are not both 0. So if there was a 0 here, I would no longer have standard form. So my variables are x and y, and the a, b, and c represents a number. So how do we graph these? So if I take a look, the first thing I want to do is rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form. So I've got negative 2x plus 3y equals negative 6. All I'm doing here is what you just did in your warm-up. So we're going to add 2x to both sides. So I end up with 3y equals 2x minus 6. Divide all of that by 3. So we end up with y equals 2/3 x minus 2. So the first thing we're going to do is rewrite it in slope-intercept form. I know it's slope-intercept form because I have a slope and I have the y-intercept. It's amazing how that works. Now I'm going to use the equation to graph. So if I have the equation y equals 2/3 x minus 2, recall this is my slope and this is my y-intercept. So I'm going to find where it crosses the y-axis at negative 2. Then my slope tells me to go up 2 over 3, 1, 2, 3, up 2 over, make sure you count right, up 2 over 1, 2, 3, and then you can graph your line. Nice job. Not too bad, is it? All right, so here's what I'd like for you to do on your own. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead, hit pause. When you're done, hit play and check your work. All right, how'd you do? So first one, subtract x from both sides. Y equals negative x minus 2, so my slope's negative 1. B is negative 2. Start at the y-intercept is negative 2, down 1, over 1, down 1, over 1, down 1, over 1. All right, so here, add half x to both sides. Divide both sides by 2. Be careful here. 1/2 divided by 2 is 1/4. So my slope is 1/4, and my y-intercept here is b. Or b is 3, so up 3 is my y-intercept. My slope is 1/4. Up 1 over 4, up 1 over 4. Now this next one is a little sneaky because when you've got this equals 0, so when you add 2/3 x to both sides, you actually end up with y equals 2/3 x. Now I added a little plus 0 here to show you where that y-intercept came from, but keep in mind, my actual equation here is y equals 2/3 x. So my slope is 2/3, my y-intercept is 0. Start at 0, up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3. Subtract 2x from both sides, so I have y equals negative 2x plus 5. My slope is negative 2. My y-intercept is 5. So start at 5, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Taking a look at example 2, we want to find the intercepts here. So if I want to find it, I'm actually going to start with the y-intercept. So remember, the y-intercept, our x value was 0, because we didn't move left or right, we only moved up or down. So we found the y-intercept. Our x was 0, and then we were looking for a y. So how do I find the y-intercept? I'm going to substitute 0 for x. So let's take a look. So if I have x plus 3y equals negative 3, I'm going to have 0 plus 3y equals negative 3. So 3y equals negative 3, divide by 3, y equals negative 1. So that means my intercept is at 0, negative 1. Now, if I want to find the x-intercept, that means I'm going to move left or right and not up or down. So that means I'm going to have a value for my x, but my y should be 0. So my y is going to be 0. Oops, that's my x. My y is going to be 0, and my x is going to be a number. So I'm going to substitute 0 for y. Sometimes it's a little counterintuitive, but if you think about where it's at on the axis, that might help you out a little bit. So if I have x plus, sorry about that, I have x plus 3 times 0 equals negative 3. So I have x equals negative 3. So that means my x-intercept here is at negative 3, 0. So I'm going to move along the x-axis, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, but not move up and down the y. Remember, your y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and your x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. So my last step is to graph the equation. So let's take a look at a real life example here. So you have $6 to spend on apples and bananas. Graph the equation where x is the number of pounds of apples and y is the number of pounds of bananas. Then interpret the intercepts. That doesn't mean tell me what they are. 5, that means explain what that number might be. So first thing I want to do is find the x-intercept. Now, honestly, it doesn't matter if you find the x or y first. Just x comes first on the alphabet, so that's what I'm going to do. So that means we're going to find the x-axis, or the x-intercept. I'm going to set y equal to 0. So I have 1 and 5/10 x plus 6/10 times 0 equals 6. So I have 1 and 5/10 x equals 6. Divide by 1 and 5/10, x equals 4. So that means my x-intercept is 4, 0. Now for my y-intercept, I'm going to set x equal to 0. So I have 6/10 y equals 6. Divide both sides by 6/10. So y equals 10. So that means I'm going to move over 0 and up 10. And I now have my line. Since the next part is to interpret the intercepts, my x-intercept right here. So x is the number of pounds of apples. So that means I can have 4 pounds of apples and no bananas. Now my y-intercept then, this one is 10, and my y is the number of pounds of bananas. That means I can have 10 pounds of bananas and no apples. Oh, sad. I like apples and bananas. I'd like to have them both. So there we go. 4 pounds of apples and no bananas, 10 pounds of bananas and no apples. All right, go ahead and try the next 3 on your own. Hit pause and let me know how you did. Check your work. All right, how'd you do? Give yourself a minute to check. So you've got a y-intercept of 0, -8, x-intercept of 4, 0. Here, y-intercept of 0, 2, x of 6, 0. And then now when we throw some oranges in the mix, we end up with 5 pounds of oranges and no apples. Nice job.